Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful Today channel. I won't forgive you. Finn angrily calls the police to arrest Lee and Luna. I will not pardon you. Finn yells at the police to take Lee and Luna into custody. Luna tricks Lee. As Bash starts, Will's doomed. When the party at Il Giardino starts, Will Spencer will be doomed because Luna Nozawa will deceive Lee Finnegan with a getaway strategy. Luna is grateful that Lee saved her life, but she also believes that Lee should relax. Almost dying didn't serve as a true wake-up call for Luna, who still doesn't take things too seriously. The fact that Luna would use more deceit in Monday's B&B episode is not shocking. Luna might fabricate an excuse to get rid of Lee, such as requesting a certain dish or whatever else Lee might go by. However, while Lee is taking a brief snooze, Luna might be able to get her to move. Luna will recognize the opportunity to sneak out and will seize it, no matter what. Lee will become frightened when she finds out that Luna has left. Lee's eerie phone call will eventually reach Sheila Sharp, who would then receive updates on Luna's escape. Given her intelligence, Sheila will undoubtedly figure out that Luna was really intrigued by the Il Giardino party. Sheila will likely believe that Luna wants to be at the restaurant as she will know Will be there. Sheila might come to the realization that her granddaughter might relapse and end up in jail if she doesn't intervene to stop Luna before it's too late. Sheila will have good reason to be concerned because Luna has demonstrated that her thoughts can wander to some rather unsettling places. There's no stopping Sheila now, even though she will embark on an urgent Luna chase. Luna has no intention of allowing Sheila, Electra Forrester, or anybody else to get in the way of her goal of sizzling with Will. Luna will need to disguise herself in order to attend the celebration, as only Sheila and Lee are aware that Luna survived. Luna will pick up a mask and have that recognizable mischievous gleam in her eye after exploring. Sheila initiated Luna's careless action, Lee's tough love failing. Luna Nozawa lacks self-control. Lee Nozawa is already realizing that rescuing her and keeping her out of jail does not result in obedient appreciation. Sheila Carter ought to be more aware. She brought what turned out to be harmful information in addition to the pizza Luna requested. In this version of Los Angeles, California, eavesdropping is rampant. When Sheila listened to Brooke Logan and Katie Logan speak with Will Spencer, who had recently been promoted to full-time position at Forrester Creations, she was doing precisely that. Il Giardino, a time to party. Viewers remember the disastrous gig at Il Giardino that Deacon Sharp urged his new acquaintance, Tom Starr, to have. Luna drugged the tumbler her presumed father was using before Tom's comeback performance. Paul Hollis Hollister was eliminated after Tom was murdered. He discovered letters revealing Tom's relationship with her mother, Poppy Nozawa, in Tom's book bag, which is why Luna killed him. Luna's impending arrival at Will's party is therefore made all the more unsettling and sinister by the revisitation of the scene of those killings. For her granddaughter, Lee Nozawa put everything on the line. The characters that Yamada and Matsuda played had an intriguing conversation. Luna asked whether that was alright after calling Lee's grandmother. Luna described how she realized she was a niece and a granddaughter, and Lee didn't mind at all. You mean only on the soap operas? Lee was affected by having two blood ties to Luna. Lee told Sheila that her feelings drastically changed when she witnessed her dying on the operation table. However, Sheila and Lee's affectionate bond as Luna's grandmothers will be put to the test. Lee will probably find out that Sheila gave her the information about Will's party after raising the alarm about Luna going missing. Is it Sheila Carter who saves? This is only the beginning of Luna's story. Therefore, it would be premature to exhibit Luna at Il Giardino. Anyone who knows her will be able to tell that she is wearing a disguise. However, since it's daylight, Luna should be able to interact with Will and the other partygoers thanks to her disguise. Being with Will or being bound to him is Luna's objective. I hope she doesn't try to use drugs, hurt Electra Forrester in any other way, or interfere with Will's alone time. You could have Sheila stop those things from happening. However, Brown's character might only come to her aid after Luna has had her fill of fun. This summer and the upcoming fall season have plenty of plot area remaining for additional risks. Finn's throat like shrapnel, raw and ragged, shattering the fragile tension that had held the room in a suffocating grip mere seconds before. I won't forgive you. It wasn't just a declaration, it was a seismic event, the final, irrevocable collapse of whatever crumbling foundations of trust, history, or misguided affection had once connected him to Lee and Luna, who now stood frozen before him, their faces etched with varying degrees of shock, defiance, and the dawning horror of consequences finally catching up. Finn's chest heaved, not just from the force of the shout, but from the tectonic plates of his own life shifting violently beneath him, revealing the scorched earth left by their betrayal. The air crackled, thick with the acrid scent of burnt bridges and the ozone tang of impending retribution. Forgiveness? The very concept felt like ash in his mouth, a bitter mockery of the devastation they had wrought. They hadn't merely crossed a line, they had napalmed the entire map of his world, his livelihood, meticulously built brick by agonizing brick, lay in smoking ruins. His reputation, once a shield, was now a target riddled with the bullets of their lies. The fragile sense of security he'd clung to was vaporized, replaced by a chilling vulnerability that gnawed at his bones. Looking at Lee, whose usual veneer of smooth confidence now showed hairline fractures of panic, and Luna, whose wide eyes flickered with a fear that felt disturbingly performative, Finn didn't see partners, friends, or even flawed humans anymore. He saw architects of his ruin, predators who had feasted on his trust, leaving only desolation in their wake. The cold, hard certainty that had been crystallizing within him for weeks, perhaps months, finally solidified into an unyielding resolve, colder and sharper than any blade. Forgiveness was the luxury of the unharmed, the privilege of those untouched by the venom they'd injected into his life. He was poisoned, crippled by their actions, and the antidote wasn't absolution, it was justice, harsh, unrelenting, and delivered by the only authority capable of matching the scale of their transgression. His hand, trembling not with uncertainty but with the sheer, white-knuckled intensity of his fury, plunged into his pocket, fingers closing around the cool, hard rectangle of his phone. The movement was deliberate, almost ceremonial, a physical manifestation of the irreversible step he was about to take. Pulling it out, the screen flared to life, a beacon in the charged gloom. His thumb stabbed at the digits, 911, each press echoing like a judge's gavel in the sudden, breathless silence that had descended. Lee finally found his voice, a strangled attempt at bluster. "Finn, don't be an idiot. Think about this. We can fix," but the words died as Finn raised his free hand, a gesture not for silence, but of utter dismissal, his eyes locked onto the phone screen, radiating a terrifying, focused calm amidst the storm of his rage. Luna let out a small, choked whimper, her hand fluttering towards Lee's arm, seeking an anchor that was clearly as adrift as she was. The ringing tone, distant and electronic, seemed absurdly loud in the room, a mundane counterpoint to the operatic tragedy unfolding. Then, a crisp, professional voice cut through. 911, what is your emergency? Finn drew a deep, shuddering breath, the air scraping his raw throat. His voice, when it came, was low, controlled, but vibrating with an undercurrent of molten fury, each word weighted and precise, forged in the crucible of betrayal. Yes. I need the police. Immediately. He paused, his gaze lifting, pinning Lee and Luna where they stood, transforming them from people he knew into exhibits A and B in the case he was building against his own shattered past. There are two individuals here who have committed multiple acts of fraud and grand theft. He enunciated the legal terms with chilling clarity. Li Zhang and Luna Rossi. They have systematically embezzled over $250,000 from our joint business venture, falsified financial records, forged my signature on critical documents, and are actively attempting to liquidate remaining assets illegally. He provided the address, his tone flat, devoid of the hysteria one might expect, replaced by the terrifying calm of absolute conviction. As he detailed the evidence, the hidden accounts he'd painstakingly traced, the doctored invoices he'd uncovered, the damning emails he'd intercepted, it wasn't just a report to the authorities, it was an exorcism, a ritual casting out of the demons who had shared his table. Each fact laid bare was another brick in the prison he was constructing around them. Lee's face drained of color, his carefully constructed facade crumbling into sheer panic, while Luna began to cry, genuine tears this time, born of terror, not manipulation, her earlier defiance replaced by the dawning realization of handcuffs and courtrooms. Finn watched their disintegration, a grim satisfaction warring with the profound, hollow ache in his chest. This wasn't victory, it was scorched earth. The operator assured him officers were en route. Finn ended the call, the finality of the beep echoing in the sudden vacuum. He pocketed the phone, the action simple yet monumental. The silence stretched, thick and poisonous. Lee found his voice again, desperate now. "Finn, please." It got out of hand. "We never meant. Finn interrupted, his voice a low, dangerous rasp. "You meant to steal. You meant to lie. You meant to destroy everything I built, everything I trusted you with. You meant every single calculated move." He took a step towards them, not threateningly, but with the implacable advance of consequence. "You looked me in the eye, shared meals, shared plans, all while picking my bones clean. Didn't mean to doesn't cover the crater you left. Forgiveness?" He let out a harsh, mirthless laugh that held no warmth, only the chill of absolute finality. "That ship sailed, burned, and sank. Forgiveness is for people who make mistakes, not for architects of annihilation. You don't get my forgiveness. You get the law. You get the consequences of your choices." He turned his back on them, a deliberate, powerful rejection, walking towards the window. The distant wail of approaching sirens, faint at first but growing steadily louder, pierced the stillness. It was the sound of the reckoning he had summoned, the physical manifestation of his refusal to be silenced or swept aside. He didn't look back as the sirens reached a crescendo outside, as red and blue lights began to strobe against the drawn curtains, painting the room in the harsh hues of justice. He heard the heavy footsteps on the porch, the sharp rap on the door. Luna started sobbing in earnest. Lee whispered, "Oh God, no." Finn remained facing the window, his reflection a stark silhouette against the pulsing emergency lights. He heard the door open, the calm, authoritative voices of the officers requesting entry, identifying themselves. Only then did he slowly turn around. He met the gaze of the lead officer, a man whose expression was professionally neutral but held an inherent expectation of order. Finn pointed, his finger steady, unwavering, an extension of his absolute, unforgiving resolve. "Those two," he stated, his voice clear and cold, cutting through Luna's sobs and Lee's stammered denials. "Li Zhang and Luna Rossi. They are the ones you need to arrest." As the officers moved forward, their movements efficient and impersonal, the cuffs gleaming dully under the overhead light, Finn watched. He watched Lee's shoulders slump in defeated acceptance, the arrogant mask finally gone, revealing only a hollow shell of fear. He watched Luna, trembling violently, her carefully curated image shattered, reduced to a terrified young woman facing the abyss. He felt no pity, only a profound, weary vindication. The sirens hadn't just brought the police, they had brought the deafening, irrevocable silence of the end. The end of their partnership, the end of the lies, the end of any possibility of shared history. There would be lawyers, trials, a messy public unraveling of their crimes, but for Finn, standing there amidst the wreckage they had created, the core truth resonated with the finality of a cell door slamming shut. He had spoken his piece. He had made his call. He would not forgive. Not today. Not ever. The burden of their actions was now theirs alone to bear, measured not in remorse, but in the cold steel of handcuffs and the long, unforgiving reach of the law. Justice, not mercy, was the only language left that he understood. Lee Finnegan's carefully controlled sanctuary, thick with the lingering scent of antiseptic and unspoken dread, crackled not with healing, but with the volatile energy of a lit fuse nearing its end. Luna Nozawa, physically mended from her brush with oblivion thanks to Lee's desperate, illicit intervention, remained psychically untouched by the gravity of her near demise. Gratitude warred with a suffocating sense of confinement within her. While she acknowledged Lee's life-saving act, it felt less like a gift and more like another chain. Lee's relentless vigilance, her stern pronouncements about laying low and avoiding any risk, especially concerning Will Spencer, felt like a prison sentence to Luna's inherently impulsive spirit. The near-death experience, instead of serving as the profound wake-up call Lee desperately prayed for, had merely reinforced Luna's core belief life was fleeting, seriousness was overrated, and seizing the moment, particularly a moment involving Will and the electric promise of the Spencer family bash erupting at Il Giardino, was non-negotiable. The fear Lee projected, the constant warnings about consequences and prison bars looming should her survival be discovered, bounced off Luna like raindrops on waxed leather. She simply wasn't wired to absorb the weight of potential futures, especially when the tantalizing now pulsed so invitingly just beyond the locked door. Thus, as Monday dawned, Luna's mind, freed from the fog of drugs but still clouded by a dangerous mix of entitlement and recklessness, began meticulously plotting her escape, viewing Lee not as her savior guardian, but as the primary obstacle between her and the sizzling reunion she craved with Will. The method was secondary, born of opportunity rather than intricate strategy, perhaps a sudden, specific craving for an obscure delicacy Lee would feel compelled to fulfill, exploiting Lee's ingrained sense of duty, or maybe the simple, predictable vulnerability of Lee succumbing to exhaustion, her eyelids fluttering shut during one of her self-imposed vigils, offering a silent window. Luna watched, a predator feigning docility, her gaze tracking Lee's movements with unnerving stillness, waiting for the precise instant when vigilance would waver. And when it did, perhaps a moment's distraction, a weary sigh, a glance away, Luna moved with the silent, swift efficiency of someone practiced in evasion. The lock clicked softly, a sound swallowed by the oppressive silence, the door opening just wide enough for her slender frame to slip through into the uncertain freedom of the hallway, leaving behind the sterile safety Lee had fought so hard to maintain. The discovery, when it came, was a physical blow to Lee Finnegan. Returning from a brief, anxious check of the perimeter, or jolting awake from a micronap haunted by nightmares of flashing police lights, the emptiness of the room struck her like a physical force. The bed was empty, the air suddenly colder. A frantic search confirmed the impossible, Luna was gone. Panic, cold and sharp, lanced through Lee, dissolving her usual composure into pure, unadulterated terror. The fragile house of cards she'd built, hiding Luna, defying medical protocol, risking her career and freedom, trembled violently. Luna's disappearance wasn't just a betrayal, it was the detonation of a bomb Lee had been sitting on. Her hands shook violently as she fumbled for her phone, the only lifeline she could grasp in this spiraling disaster. The call connected, and Lee's voice, stripped bare of its professional authority, was a raw, trembling rasp, pouring out the catastrophic news to the only other soul burdened with this terrible secret, Sheila Sharp. "She's gone. Luna's gone. I turned my back for a second, she just vanished." The words tumbled out, laden with accusation directed at herself and the impossible girl she'd tried to save. On the other end, Sheila Sharp absorbed the tremor in Lee's voice, the sheer, unvarnished panic. The news was a jolt, but Sheila's mind, honed by decades of survival and manipulation, didn't freeze, it accelerated. Luna's frantic questions about the party at Il Giardino, her obsessive focus on Will Spencer despite her brush with death, flashed through Sheila's consciousness with chilling clarity. The pieces snapped together with brutal efficiency. Luna hadn't just escaped confinement, she'd bolted towards the epicenter of danger, towards Will and the very public celebration crawling with Forresters, Spencers, and undoubtedly, law enforcement still buzzing from recent scandals. Sheila understood the terrifying trajectory instantly. Luna, fueled by a toxic cocktail of obsession and a pathological refusal to grasp consequence, was heading straight for the party. The implications were horrifyingly clear. If Luna, a fugitive from justice believed dead, was discovered alive and interacting with Will, especially if she reignited their volatile connection publicly, it wouldn't just mean scandal. It would mean handcuffs, prison bars slamming shut, a return to the cold cell Sheila herself knew too well. Luna's past actions, her capacity for disturbing, self-serving decisions even before the overdose, painted a grim picture of what she might do next, desperate to reclaim her perceived destiny with Will. Sheila's love for her granddaughter warred with a chilling dread. Luna's mind could go to dark, destructive places when thwarted, and this flight was the ultimate act of self-sabotage. Il Giardino, Sheila breathed, the name tasting like ash. She's going to Will. A surge of protective urgency, fierce and primal, ignited within her. She had to find Luna, intercept her before she stepped into the lion's den, before she doomed herself utterly. I'm on my way, Sheila declared, already grabbing her keys, the weight of generations bearing down on her. But even as she sprang into action, a cold knot of certainty formed in her gut. Luna was already gone, a ghost slipping through the city, driven by a singular, reckless purpose. The hunt was urgent, but the quarry was already vanishing into the shadows, her destination clear, her resolve terrifyingly absolute. Luna Nozawa, tasting the illicit sweetness of freedom, moved through the city like a phantom, the sterile confinement of Lee's apartment a rapidly fading memory. The cool night air felt like a baptism, washing away the cloying scent of medicine and fear. Her destination burned in her mind with the intensity of a beacon, Il Giardino. Will. The bash. The thought of seeing him again, of feeling his arms around her, of reclaiming the chaotic, passionate connection they shared, obliterated any lingering whisper of caution. Sheila's warnings, Lee's frantic pleas, they were static, background noise to the symphony of desire pounding in her veins. She was on a mission, not just to attend, but to sizzle, to reignite the fire with Will Spencer, consequences be damned. Sheila, Lee, Electra Forrester, the entire disapproving world, they were merely obstacles to be circumvented, walls to scale. Her survival instinct, ironically sharpened by her brush with death, focused entirely on achieving this one.